Why be self-disciplined if it's never going to mean anything? It's no big deal. What I do doesn't matter. It does matter. It's just the story of you. You got to have this sense that you're making history. Because, by the way, you are. Timing matters in business. Rhythm matters in business. And almost always now is better than later. If there's a contact that needs to be done, make it now. If there's an email that needs to be written, do it now. Don't delay. Don't wait. I'd rather have a flawed plan executed with certainty and massive action than the perfect plan executed with doubt and very little action. There is no perfect decision. Make one. Welcome back to the show. So you're going to see a change in the show between now and the end of the year. You know, it's been no secret that I've had a few health issues the last couple of years. Heck, I haven't even posted on social media in a few years, but we've been coming strong with 3 podcasts a week, even during that time. Well, between now and the end of the year, I'm going to scale it down a little bit, but give more value. So what I'm going to do is I've created a masterclass that's going to come out on Tuesdays, and you'll still get your Saturday episodes. We're going to take a pause on Thursdays, but every Tuesday, you're going to get a masterclass from me that I've created to help you finish 2025 strong and go into 2026 and make it the best year of your life. I'm calling this masterclass Max Out Your Mind, Faith, Focus, and Fire, Mastering Your Internal World so you can navigate your external world. It's going to come out every single Tuesday. I think you're going to love it. Hey guys, I'm so excited about this week's lesson. This week's lesson is all about how to put belief in motion and faith into action. You're going to love this. Enjoy. Hope you share it. What I really look for when I'm evaluating talent and people I want on my team is their self-discipline levels, because I know those people are going to max out their own capacity. And if you remember this, extremity expands capacity. And the way we extend our capacity in life is to have the highest levels of self-discipline. And it's something all of us struggle with, including me. I love Netflix. I love Cheetos. I love sleep. I love laying around. The challenge with that is those aren't the things that produce bliss in our life, that give us memories, that give us joy, nor do they produce maximum results in our businesses and our bodies, relationships, and even our emotions, as I've said. So let's take a look at how do we expand our capacity? How do we increase our self-discipline? For me, and what I would recommend for you, is that it starts out by taking an honest look, an audit at the things that take away from our self-disciplines. What are the things that rob you, that steal you from your disciplines? So in my case, for example, I'll give you some things that rob me of my disciplines, that take my focus away, take my attention away, that make it more easy to do than the things I need to do. For me, some of it's television. And in my own case, it is that. Like, I really do enjoy Netflix. I'll get captivated when I wake up in the morning. So for me, it's been sports, it's been Netflix, it's been watching sports on television. This robs me of my self-disciplines. Another thing for me is worry. Believe it or not, the emotion of worry or the emotion of fear steals my self-discipline because I'm captivated in a problem that really hasn't even existed yet, probably won't exist, but I've given my attention and my energy off the task at hand. Some of you, it might be a worry addiction. It might be addiction to a relationship, but these are the things. You have to make a list of the things. For me, in a given day, what takes my self-discipline from me is worry, fear, and the process of watching screens, scrolling through Instagram, scrolling through TikTok, watching YouTube, watching sports on television. So I've made lists of things that are my self-discipline stealers. And I haven't eliminated them, but I've reduced them and I schedule them in non-productive times. So it's not that I can't watch SportsCenter. It's not that I can't scroll TikTok or Instagram. I can do that, but I have to schedule it in times that don't take away from moving the needle. You've got to do moving the needle activities in your life. The most successful people do the highest impact things possible in any given moment or any given day. And the people that lose or that produce subpar results or average results, they still work very hard, but they don't do the needle moving things. So in my fitness, for example, one of the needle moving things is drinking water. That's a self-discipline that is required of me to stay in my peak physical state in every given day. I'm going to show you in a minute how I make sure I do that. And then I eliminate and I make a list of the things that take that away from me. One of the other things is I have to do breath work. I have to control my breathing. I love yoga now. I'm doing a lot of yoga. And I had to, what is it that eliminates that for me? One, it's getting up too late. Two, it's turning on that television and watching sports. So I've made lists of the things that rob me of my disciplines. The second thing in self-discipline is this: Show me your schedule. Show me your day timer, and I will show you your life. If you show me your schedule today and what you do consistently in a given day, what you have scheduled, because what you schedule is a priority, okay? So if you show me your schedule, I will show you your life a year to 3 years from now based on today's schedule. So second thing in self-discipline is scheduling the things that matter, literally putting them in and having a time for them scheduled on a regular basis. So I have things in my calendar that says, text Bella, call Max, call mom. I have scheduled these things in my calendar. When I'm in my schedule, I will do the things that are in there. So a lot of times we just schedule our appointments, don't we? We just have appointments. And that's all we have on a calendar. At the end of the day, I didn't make my contacts. I didn't tell the people that I love them. I didn't do the amount of emails I was supposed to do. I didn't take the time to write the chapter of my book. I didn't craft my social media captions. Things need to be scheduled. That's where self-discipline comes from. And then the third thing is I've built the habit of keeping the promises that I make to myself. The process of self-discipline is like a muscle that you can grow. And so I think the mistake many people make is they start with these huge things that they think require self-discipline. And unless they do these huge things, they lack it. Whereas I believe you start in the micro, you start small in life, and that's what builds the real discipline. So this may sound crazy, but I have eliminated and written down the things that take my self-discipline away. I have scheduled the things that make me look like I have self-discipline. And then third, I start with the small promises I can keep to myself. And that's to this day, 25 years later on this journey, 35 years later on this journey, I still schedule things. I still do little things that create momentum, because momentum, as I've said before, is a magnifier. Momentum can make an average, ordinary person like me produce superhuman results. So I create what might be considered artificial momentum every single day. So let me give you an example of that. I make my bed every single day. I've been doing that for many, many years. That seems insignificant, right? Because I could pay somebody to make my bed every single day. That's not why I do it. I do it because it starts my day with discipline, and it's something that I can control and I can maintain. I have a routine that I do, whatever your routine might be. For me, it could be the cold plunge or my prayer time or my meditation time, my stretching, my scripture reading. I do these things early in my day. These are promises that I can make to myself that create this identity of a self-disciplined person, when the truth is I am not one. I have not been one, but I have created an identity of a self-disciplined person. I'm going to tell you that I don't think anyone has natural discipline. They build structures around them. They build systems around them. They schedule them, and they eliminate the things that take from it. And over time, they build this identity where they seem like they're incredibly disciplined people. Remember this for a second. Your brain is always trying to conserve energy. It's always trying to conserve energy. It's trying to build a habit. It is trying to do this so that it doesn't have to work to think. And so the more you do these little things, your brain wants to continue to do them. It's not just a muscle, it's how the brain functions, because now that it's just stuff that you do every single day, it doesn't have to think about it anymore. And under pressure in life, we act reflexively. Under pressure, we act reflexively. So if your reflex is to have these habits that serve you, your life becomes very easy. It also frees your brain up to be much more creative and innovative and energized and aware than people who don't have discipline. See, the benefit of discipline and self-discipline is not just that you get these things done. It's that your brain's not having to work so darn hard. See, when you don't have self-discipline, when you don't have things you do early in your day, when you don't keep promises to yourself, when you don't schedule the things, right? When you don't do those things, when you don't eliminate the things that rob you of your self-discipline, not only you're not getting stuff done, you're more tired. You're more physically exhausted. Here's the fallacy. People think self-discipline, people that get up, that work out, that do their stuff, that make their calls, that have these relationships, that are sending out a bunch of emails, that are making a bunch of contacts, they're tired. That's not the case, because after a while, this is automatic. Their brain's not having to think about it. It's just what they do. It's their routine. Your brain, on the other hand, if you're not disciplined, isn't nearly as organized. So it's having to work to think through, to get back up, to start over, to restart, to get going again. It's constantly having to work. And what you're doing is you're depleting yourself of the energies that could have gone towards creativity, focus, awareness, and intentional activities. Does that make sense? So actually, undisciplined people are more tired at the end of a day than disciplined people. And that's what I found. They say, you're 52, you're working harder than you've ever worked in your dadgum life. Why? Because I have built all these structures around me and eliminated most of the things that take my focus and discipline away, so that I am wired, man, with a ton of energy to create and innovate and think and be present in the moment, because I have self-discipline. And self-discipline is a process, is a habit. It is not something someone's born with, and it's not very complicated. What has to happen, though, is you got to do it for a while. But now the idea of not working out in a given day makes me sick to my stomach. I can't even imagine not working out. But way back in the day, I had to schedule it. I had to eliminate the sports center. I had to have the glass of water next to me. I had to have my workout clothes laid out the night before. I had to make my bed. Then I had to do you follow what I'm saying? These things make the discipline part look much harder than it is. It's actually autopilot for me now. I don't have to think about it. So there's all these benefits to having self-discipline. And I want to share with you like almost my manifesto for self-discipline. And it's quite old. So if you're watching this, you'll see this magazine. And if you're not, I'm going to give you a gift. You're going to hear it on the audio anyway. But here we go. This is from Newsweek magazine a little while ago, June 18th, 2001. So at the time that we're recording this, and by the way, stay focused in growth day all the time. This is one of the best things you can do, is be in an environment that's conducive to self-discipline, that fosters it. That's what we're doing here. Right? This right here, what we're doing, this place you're doing this at, creates self-discipline, because the environment is constantly feeding you things that create the habits and rituals that make your life easier. But here we go. June 18th, 2001, Newsweek cover, Tiger Rules. I have carried this magazine, 2 of them. I have 2 copies of them with me everywhere I have gone on business trips for 22 going on 23 years. I have read what I'm going to share with you thousands of times, because it's about discipline, self-discipline, and the mindset that comes with being self-disciplined. Tiger Rules. This was the prime of Tiger Woods' career, one of the most disciplined people of all time. Now, when I say discipline in his sports life, anybody who knows anything about sports, know the sports part of his life, in his prime, there was no more disciplined athlete in the history of sports. Would you agree with me on that? In his prime, in his sports life, there's never been an athlete more disciplined than Tiger Woods. And I wanted to be what he did in golf. I wanted to do in the business part of my life. And so there was this article, and I've carried it now for almost 23 years. Okay. Here's what it's called. The Dominator. The Dominator. And it's 5 rules for Tiger Woods' domination and self-discipline. Would you like to know what they are? Because this article, the dude who read this article 22, 23 years ago, didn't have the mindset of self-discipline. I had the desire for self-discipline. I had some of the habits, but I didn't want to just do well in business, do well in life. I wanted to dominate. How many of you would like to dominate? I mean, go from average, ordinary, not just to winning, but dominance. Dominate in your life, whatever that area is. Dominate in the love parts of your life. Dominate in your emotions. Dominate in business. Dominate in the financial part of your life. Maybe dominate your former self, but be dominant in your life. At the end of this life, man, I was dominant, right? I wanted to do that. And I don't think that that's a male or female thing. I'm talking about being great, becoming a GOAT, doing something awesome. And here's what happens 22, 23 years later. Stay with me on this. It's so awesome. The guy that started 22, 23 years ago is totally unrecognizable to me, to the man that I am today. Would you like in 22 or 23 years, 25 years from now, to look back and go, I don't even recognize that person. It's the same integrity. It's the same character. It's the same loving being. But I've become something so dominant. I've become almost like a machine. People look at me, you heard audios I've done in the past where I say, I'd like to be more like him in my business life. I'd like to be more like him. I want to be a dominator. So I aspired to be a dominator, and I know you do too. You want to know what the 5 rules are? I'm going to give them to you. These are the mindsets, not just the behaviors. These are the mindsets of a self-disciplined person. So here we go. Here's what he says. Here's the article, by the way. You believe I still carry this thing? Here we go. Number one, genius is 99% perspiration. Perspiration. I had to hear that. I had to have someone give me permission to work really, really hard. Now, what they do in this article, by the way, is they interviewed other dominators. I think I said that. I think I said that about 10 minutes ago when I said under pressure, you react reflexively. And so although these great people that you see have these unbelievable geniuses and creativity, what they really are great at the fundamentals, and they grind and they hit more golf balls than everybody else. They throw more passes. They watch more game film. They make more contacts in business. They talk to more people. They see more people. And that number one rule gave me the permission and the habit of I've got to become self-disciplined if I'm going to be a dominator. And these are habits and rituals and routines. Everybody on the PGA Tour could hit golf balls. There's nothing special about that. It's who hit the most, with the most intention, with the most focus. Tiger Woods did. And that's why Tiger Woods became Tiger Woods and everybody else became everybody else. So if you want to become aspirational level 4, these self-discipline mindsets and thoughts, in addition to the structural things I said earlier, are the keys. How good is this? By the way, thousands of times I've read Tiger's rules on domination. Number 2, let the other guy get nervous. What about you? Your peers in your industry? Anybody getting nervous? Anybody worrying about you? Anybody up staying late at night thinking how they're going to compete against you? Do you get people under pressure to crack and flinch, or are they not concerned about you at all? See, in business, not only did I want to have the hardest work ethic, but I wanted people to think, man, I got to be at my A game to beat this dude. I wanted the people around me that were on my team to want to rise up to the standard that I was setting at any given time. I want everybody else to get nervous and flinch, and under pressure, I was cool and calm. You remember this? Self-discipline, one of the things that comes with it is a sense of emotional control. You don't get too high and you don't get too low. See, self-disciplined people maintain emotional control. That's what they're saying in number 2 here. And I've learned that skill. I used to get very up and very down. Well, listen, when you're very up, your disciplines crack, right? And when you're very down, it's very difficult to be disciplined. But when you can stay somewhere in the middle, up and down, maybe 20, 25%, it allows you to stay self-disciplined in those moments. Number 3, don't just dominate, intimidate. Yeah, Tiger's repeatedly said that intimidation isn't a part of his game, but that's once he's on the course. He's thinking about nothing but his own shot making. Sure, once he's on the course, but what about when he's getting dressed in the morning? This is what this means. You have to have the mindset that you are not going to think like everybody else, that you're going to think differently. And I'm letting you way on the inside here of self-discipline. This is deep, 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 deep into it. But if you keep thinking like everybody else thinks, right, you're not going to be great. And I know this stuff isn't always pretty to hear, but I'm going to tell you right now, this is what winning is. These are the little subtle thoughts that when you're, hey, good to see you, good to see you. But in your mind, you're like, they ain't getting at me. They don't know how to play it at this level. They don't know this game. These are all the things. You start doing all this stuff, plus what I said in the very beginning, eliminating the distractions, scheduling the right things. You got to be kidding me. Moving needle activities next, the big stuff, starting with simple practices that build self-confidence and build momentum. How about number 4? This is huge, guys. Have a sense of the historic. You hear that? You have a sense of the historic. This gives you a context to want to be self-disciplined. Does that make sense? Why be self-disciplined if it's never going to mean anything? That's the problem. One of the reasons we're not self-disciplined, it's never going to mean anything. Who cares? No one's going to notice. It's no big deal. What I do doesn't matter. It does matter. It's just your dadgum life. It's just the story of you. It's just your family name. It's just your reputation. It's just what they're going to talk about when you're gone. Is doing something historic. So whether that means you're going to win a World Series or a Masters golf tournament or just be the one in your family and change your family forever, you got to have this sense that you're making history. Because, by the way, you're making some type of history. If you're a faith-based person, you know someday you're going to account for it. There's going to be a history of your life. And even if you're not, you got to believe somewhere along the road there's some record of your existence. So you're making history, so you might as well have a sense of it. And when you have a sense that that history is going to be great instead of average and ordinary, you begin to automatically become compelled to be self-disciplined. If you lack self-discipline, there's nothing compelling you to have it other than wanting it. But if you have a sense of the historic, that's totally different. So he says this: do you have to win the big ones to be a dominator? It's a subject of eternal debate amongst sports fans, but it shouldn't be. Tiger is the proof. He's at the head of a heavenly crew of athletes, not because he's won 5 of his past 6 tournaments, but because he's won 5 of his past 6 major tournaments. Every athlete says he wants to win major championships, but Tiger doesn't just want those moments of glory. Listen to this. He has an innate sense that he can't be a legend without them. In our lives, there's going to be a bunch of every single day meetings, every single day encounters with people, and they seem inconsequential. But when you have self-discipline in these meetings and in these encounters with people, in your relationships, in business, in the gym, whatever it might be, on an everyday basis, every once in a while, there's going to be a big one show up. And you're ready for it when it happens because it's your habit. It's because it's your discipline. If I look back at my own life, the very few occasions and meetings that took the massive difference in my life, it is scary to think about had I not shown up and performed in that meeting, or I had not done the right thing on that first date. It's amazing, even in your own life, isn't it? And so that's why day-to-day being ready, day-to-day having self-discipline, day-to-day having these habits and the mindsets to go with them matter, because you never know when it's coming. And the 5th one, this is big. This is why a 52-year-old is this fired up today talking to you. You ready? Never, ever be satisfied. Never, ever be satisfied. Most athletes work the hardest when they're trying to reach the top. So do most business people. Once they can get to that $100,000, they worked hard. Once they get to that $1 million, they've worked as hard as they can work. The great ones work even harder after they get to the 100,000, harder after they get to the million, harder after they're famous, harder after they've got a big following, harder after they get that promotion. They work harder in their loving relationships after they've got the one that's the one. But most people work hardest to get them. And once they have them, they don't work as hard to keep them or to grow it. The great ones work even harder after they get what they want, who they want. Wouldn't you love to be in a relationship with somebody who worked so hard to get you, and then once they got you, worked even harder the rest of your life to keep loving you? Wouldn't you love in business someone who had a goal to get to $1 million or $100,000, and when they got there, they worked even harder? But we all know in life that's not true for most people. But the great ones, the dominators, the goats, the self-disciplined people, they work even harder when they get there. So most athletes work the hardest when they're trying to reach the top, but Tiger has seemed only more committed to improving his game since leaving the competition in the dust. Woods won his first Masters by the largest margin in history in 1997, but he knew that he wouldn't reach Jack Nicklaus' mark of 6 green jackets without a jolt of his game. So he spent the next 18 months literally retooling his thunderous swing. And it goes on to give you more and more examples about that. Talks about Michael Jordan in here and compares him to Michael Jordan. But I want you to think about that in your own life, those of you listening to it. How hard did you work when you were totally broke? And now that you're not, do you have that same hunger and work ethic? How hard did you work to lose that first 20 pounds to get in pretty good shape? But are you working even harder now to get the ultimate health and vitality in your life? How hard did you work to get your spouse or your girlfriend or your boyfriend in your life? Are you working even harder now to love them more? Because that's what the dominators do. That's what self-discipline is. And so these 5 steps of the Tiger rules, by the way, they wrote this article in 2001. They didn't know who Tiger Woods was going to turn out to be. Turns out that this is like literally for me, almost like a business Bible of, in some sense, because all of these things prove to build the greatest golfer of all time, or at least one of the 2. And I watched this man in his sports life, not in every area of his life, but in his sports life, implement these 5 things over and over again. And that's how he's come back from car accidents and unbelievable situations and still won the Masters a few years ago on basically one leg, won a US Open on a broken leg. It's incredible. And these are the people we look at and go, they're so self-disciplined. They're so amazing. Maybe you think that when you're listening to me sometimes. And now you know, naturally I'm not. But I do have some steps and some strategies that I've shared with you today. Technical steps, that's the science. And then there's the art. And the art is the mindset. The art is the thinking. One of the invisible things that I see with the top athletes I coach, entertainers, hopefully myself, business people for sure, is this. They have the ability to take immediate, massive action. And the people that I see that are behind them hesitate, they flinch, they think they need to plan a little bit more, strategize a little bit more. They procrastinate, they get around to doing something. One of the muscles I built anybody on my team will tell you is I'm like, let's just do it now. Let's do it right now. There's a power to now. And I think a lot of people don't understand the vibrational frequency of now. Oftentimes, a really great plan that's delayed in its execution, that vibrates at a lower frequency than someone says, let's do it right now. Let's attack it right now. Let's get after it right now. So I want you to write this down this morning. The power of now, the power of taking immediate, massive action. Oftentimes, timing matters in business. Rhythm matters in business. It's not always the perfect plan. It's when. And almost always now is better than later. And it's a sign, it's a trait that I see in mega achievers. For example, if there's a phone call that you need to make it now. If there's a contact that needs to be done, make it now. If there's an email that needs to be written, do it now. Don't delay, don't wait. There's a moment of inspiration that happens too when an idea affects you and hits you to take action on it immediately. You ever have maybe a thought of a speech or a text you want to write or a business concept or a way you'd phrase something differently or just an overall thing you should be doing hits you in a moment? And then you go, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to write this down. And you write it down, the idea, exactly as you felt it. And then you revisit it, 3 days later or 2 days later or 6 hours later. Doesn't it vibrate at a lower frequency? Isn't it less impactful even to you when you read it as opposed to when you had it in the moment? There's something about the moment that vibrates at a high frequency that is more powerful than later. And oftentimes we wait and delay and write it down and it loses its power. There was a power in the moment. That's not just true with content or writing or creating. I've found it's true with almost everything in life. One of my superpowers, I can candidly tell you, is my ability to take immediate massive action when an idea hits me. I don't wait for the perfect moment. Usually the perfect moment is now. The right time to tell somebody that you love them when you feel it is right now. The right time to make that contact, right now. The right time to fix that issue with your friend that you're going through right now where it just doesn't feel right or there's some strife, right now. The challenge with your spouse, walk in. Can we fix this right now, please? Now, I know there are some things that are better in life sitting for a while and diminishing, even if it's like a disagreement. But those things are more rare than they are common. The vast majority of things are better when we take immediate, massive action. But there's nothing like the moment. There's nothing like calling the shot in the moment. And I have to tell you something. This is a common trait. Why? Because these people have more confidence. The reason you're delaying writing that email, doing the chapter, making the contact, fixing the problem, sending out the blog post, is you're afraid. And you think if you wait longer, you'll be less afraid. If you get a little bit more preparation, you'll be more ready. The truth is that's almost never the case. There are some situations where that's true. But by and large, most of the time, people will tell me, hey, so-and-so called with this. I go, get them on the phone right now. Right? Get them on the phone right now. Let's do it right now. If just right now, this what I'm doing. I needed to make some content for the week. My team's like, are you available at 12:30? But when I go, hey, I'm available right now. And it was my team who said we got to wait a half hour. Well, I'm like, let's go. I love knocking things off the list because that creates momentum. Why? I have confidence. And the more you do this, ironically, you will develop confidence in yourself to be able to attack things in the moment. Sometimes I say annihilate the problem, fix something in the moment. What you think is you need more information. Successful people are good planners, but let me tell you what they have. They have a lower threshold of what they think to know or how prepared they think they need to be in order to take action. And people that don't win quite at a high level, as high as they could, have a higher threshold requirement in their mind, and it's a fallacy, of how much preparation and what they need. This is an efficiency. This is a rhythm. What I've found is almost more than anything, there's a rhythm to success. There's a rhythm. And when someone gets in that mode of they've got momentum, they got their mojo going, you've all had it. There's a rhythm and a cadence that gets them going. And if you wait and delay on things, it's impossible to get into that rhythm. But now, all of a sudden, you're in that rhythm of success where you're in flow because you're constantly moving. It's almost like a river that should constantly be flowing and running instead of stagnant water. Stagnant water starts to get murky. It starts to smell. It can actually form fungus and mold. And a lot of people's lives, in some strange way, are kind of like still water. It's not healthy, gathers all this stuff. But a stream that's running all the time is beautiful. And that stream, just by its pure force of running all the time in the now, creates beautiful things around it and actually opens up the flow of other things in their life because it's constantly flowing in the now. There's a power to now. There's a power to this moment that once it's gone, is gone forever. So what I'm saying to you today is take advantage of the present moment, not just being focused in the present, but acting in the present. It's one thing to be, I'm present with you. It's another thing to take an action in the moment. Remember this, problems need energy to live. And so the concept should be that we solve problems, but we don't have to pour and deplete ourselves of energy. Because the more energy you give something, the more it expands. We want to be in the max out universe. We want to pour our energy and expense our energy towards the solution, not towards the problem. So the first thing I want you to write down is 90% of your energy, focus, time, and thought should be towards the solution, not towards the problem itself. This is a mistake most people make because they expend all the energy into the problem. They obsess over the problem. And when you expand energy, it grows to survive. And the problem gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and the solution becomes more and more difficult. So the first thing is, can you consciously begin to focus on energy expansion into the solution, 90% of it into the solution and not into the problem? What we do is we repeat that problem over and over and over again, and we magnify it to the point where we don't come up with realistic solutions and we deplete ourselves as energy towards the solution. And so focus going forward, when a problem arises, a challenge arises, that you focus 90% of your energy and thoughts on the solution and not repeating the problem to yourself. And again, I want to remind you, we want problems in our lives. They're the one opportunity we have to grow. Without the existence of problems and challenges, there's no opportunities for growth in life. And so we don't wish for a life that doesn't have challenges and problems, even though it seems like we would want one. Number one, you're always going to have problems and challenges in life. So today is such a great day to begin to accept strategies and a formula and a mindset that'll help you do that. But I know who you are because you follow my content. You're somebody who wants to grow and improve and change in your life and become a maxed out version and a better version of yourself in every area. The only opportunity you have to do that is when problems and challenges arise. These are growth opportunities in our life. So when they arise, it's very important that you see them as an opportunity to grow. And again, I don't mean that in a rah-rah, foofy way. It's very true. It's important that we distinguish what it means, because remember this, in other audios I've talked about the quality of our life is comprised of the quality of emotions we live with. Our life is our emotions, right? If you have the emotions of happiness and joy and ecstasy and peace and faith and passion and intensity and winning, that's a great life. If you have a life that's filled with emotions regularly of depression, anxiety, fear, stress, worry, anger, that's a totally different quality of life. So our emotions dictate the quality of our life. And so when a stimulus like a problem comes up, we better be thinking it's an opportunity to grow, and we better be expensing our energy towards the solution, or we start to experience the wrong emotions. Why? Because in our life, emotions come from meaning. Because when problems come up in life, the meaning we take from the event dictates the emotion we experience. And so that emotion dictates the quality of our life. And so I want you going forward, when a problem arises, to feel the emotion and take the meaning away that this is an opportunity to grow, to expand. If you look back at your life in hindsight, the problems and challenges you have all made you better when you solved them. So those are the keys to begin today. The question is, how do we solve them? Is there a process? Is there a mindset? Are there some steps that when these arise, I've got a recipe and a formula? And that's what I want to share with you today. So now I want to start out with a very basic 3-step formula to begin with. Then we're going to get very granular and very specific. But there are 3 steps that I always take once I've arrived where I'm ready to take action towards solving problems. Number 1 is make a decision. Once you've made a decision, make it. Number 2 is have massive certainty about that decision you've made. Once you've made a decision about how you're going to execute on this problem, make the decision. Number 2, massive certainty. Flood yourself with certainty. You can't execute at a high level with self-doubt or a doubt about the process, a doubt about your strategy. Flood yourself with certainty that you know what you've got is going to work. And then third, take insane action. This is a recipe in every area of your life. I don't care if it's in business, in family, in sports. Make a decision. Flood yourself with certainty and take massive action. This process I use with the athletes I coach. I use it with the entertainers, with the politicians, with the business people. I'm always reminding them all the time. I'm repeating them constantly. Make a decision. People wait around too long for the perfect plan. I'd rather have a flawed plan executed with certainty and massive action than the perfect plan executed with doubt and very little action. There is no perfect decision. Make one. Now, we're going to talk about how to arrive at the best decision in a minute. But I want you to remember, make a decision. Massive certainty, massive insane action. This will crush most problems. We've already talked about spending 90% of our time on the solution and not the problem. I'm going to give you another set of percentages here. Second point, get clear on what this problem really means. Is this a problem that's really going to matter in 5 years? Really? Because what we do is, we talked earlier about meaning. What we do is most people, a problem comes up and we begin to flood ourselves when they stack it and stack it. This is a pattern most people go into, and they lose perspective on how really important this problem is. They lose perspective. They get foggy because they've increased their stress level so high that now the problem is difficult to solve because you've lost perspective on really how big of a deal it is. And so make sure you're very clear. Is this something that's going to matter in 5 years? Because if it's not one of those types of problems, for the most part, massive action, 85%. We're going to talk today about the 15% of the time where it requires a deliberation and a process to solve it. But don't be conflicted or confused into thinking most of the things that arise in your life, most of the time your challenge is you're not solving it quickly enough. You're not being deliberate. You're not being decisive. You're not getting totally certain. Certainty is so huge. Flood yourself with certainty, the reasons it'll work over and over again. And then most people don't understand you can obliterate most problems with just massive action. I see people hem and haw and make excuses all the time when challenges arise, and it would have just been solved if you'd have decided, you'd have been totally certain, and you'd obliterate that problem with some massive action. Stress is not a great place to live from. It's one of those disempowering meanings, and it's also a terrible place to make decisions from to solve problems. So change your physiology, you can change the ability to solve that problem. Okay, so let's now transition into a very step-by-step process that I want you to utilize when a problem and challenge arises that's not in the 85% category that should be solved right away, right? Remember this, worry is a misuse of your imagination. So is stress. So make sure you're taking an empowering meaning. These are all things you must know and believe to be true so you take the right meaning away so you make the right decisions. Number one thing you must do, define reality. Where are you really? What does this really mean? What is this really all about? So you have to define reality. Like, what does this really mean? What is really happening right now? Not the story you've already started to tell yourself about what's happening, but can you get clear? Can you step out of your own situation and look at the problem from an independent perspective, from an unbiased perspective, and define reality? What really is the challenge? What really is the problem? Blame should never be assigned in the problem-solving process. That is post-mortem. That is after you're done solving the problem and it is dead. The mistake we make is we start to tell this story and whose fault it is. It's my fault, it's their fault. And what happens is that depletes our energy, it distracts our focus from the solution, and it begins this story that we start stacking ourselves. So when that tendency comes up in you, that need, that behavior, that pattern, who's to blame? Whose fault is it? This takes you away from the solution. It does not solve the problem, it magnifies the problem. Always remember this. We will assign blame when it's over. I'm all about the solution, laser focused on the solution. See, the ability to get laser focused on something in life, you can obliterate things in life. You can achieve such massive things if you begin to build the muscle of eliminating distractions, eliminating the stories, eliminating the stress, and getting perfect clarity on where you really are. And the number one stressor, the number one distraction is who's to blame? What's my story? Before it's even been solved, we want to assign blame. That is a distraction. Don't do it. Number two, you have to get a clear vision of what you want. Like exactly what do you want when this problem is solved? What do you want to be happening different than it is now specifically? It can't be a general thing. It can't be that you want to eliminate this. What is it that you want? You can't just eliminate something without replacing it with what exactly is you want. So the second thing I always ask myself, and I do this very quickly, and remember, this is only on 15% of the problems.
What is it exactly that I want? With specificity, with clarity. Because this laser focus now, I can move towards a solution if I'm clear on what it is, which is number 3. Once I'm clear on what it is, get resourceful. Once you figured out exactly what it is in number 2, the third step is to get totally resourceful about solving the problem. What does that mean? Who are the people that can help you? The resources, the places, the things, the circumstances, the collaborations. Who is that you might need to talk to who solved a similar problem in your life? What are the resources available to you? The more you begin to point out to yourself, I have all these resources at my disposal, the more your anxiety and stress level begins to go down, and it's true. Are there problems like this you've solved in the past? Something similar in the past you've solved or somebody else has solved? Most people get very unresourceful. They feel like there's no hope, no help. So ask yourself, how do I get resourceful? What are my resources here? And then the last thing, if I could just say this to you that are people of faith, or if you plug into the universe, why don't you embrace the fact and the belief that you're being guided, that there's a blessing happening in your life, or that you can plug into something that's got great answers for you. There's resources everywhere for you. For those of you that are people of faith, or even if you're somebody who you don't have a specific religion, but you plug into the energy of the world. Why is it that when a problem arises, we abandon our God, we abandon our faith, we abandon the fact that we're guided, we abandon the higher consciousness that we believe in? Why is it that when a problem arises, we abandon that? Why don't you believe you're guided? My great resource is my contacts, my friends, my previous experience, maybe the people around me that I can talk to, but my biggest one is my God. I'm being guided, I'm being blessed, I'm favored. Plug into that divine inspiration, that divine understanding. If you pray for their guidance or you pray for their help, you pray for their will, right? And you can pray for the information as well. So begin to feel you're guided. Get super resourceful is the third step. The fourth empowering question you just ask yourself very quickly, what can I learn from this? People say to me, that's really difficult to do in the middle of the problem. No, it's not. It's just something that's a habit you've not built yet. What can I learn from this? What's the learning experience? Because as you're learning as you go, this problem is less likely to repeat itself in our lives. There's nothing wrong with making mistakes. There's nothing wrong with even having problems. There's a challenge if we continue to repeat the same mistake that causes the same problems. And so what can I learn from this? Now you're leveraging this problem to grow. Now this isn't something you're just overcoming and putting behind you, but you're using this experience and this challenge to move in front of it, not just get it behind you. There's a big difference in that perspective. What's great about this problem? That's a difficult question to ask when you're going through the middle of it, Ed. No, it's not. Not if you build the habit, not if you begin to think like this, because what that does is it changes the meaning to you. It puts you in an empowering state and not a disempowering state. So what is great about this? There are always great things in having problems and challenges, whether it's going to be that you'll be more prepared next time, or you're going to put things in place that will prevent it from happening next time, or what you're going to learn from it, or how you're going to grow from it, or who you're going to connect with from it, or the other ancillary things that are going to be improved, or the fact that it just gives you a challenge and keeps you alive, right? But what's great about the problem? It just helps you take the right meaning. The more we can get in the right state, in the right meaning, the more we're going to be able to do the three things we talked about, which is make that decision, load ourselves with certainty, and take massive, insane action. So the more you understand that a couple reasons this is great, the more you've learned something from it, the more you're flooding yourself with certainty. All of these are steps that help you with step 2 I shared earlier of flooding yourself with certainty. Because I know when I said that earlier, I know you were thinking, I can make the decision, and I understand number 3 with insane action, but how do I get more certain? How do you do that? You do that by taking away what you're learning, by taking away what's great about it. And number 5, what's not perfect yet? And that question is different than what's great. What's not perfect yet? And you begin to understand what could make it more perfect. It helps you refine and get more specific, and it helps you with your certainty. Number 6, what am I willing to do to make it the way I want it? This is important because there will be things in a minute you're not willing to do. But what are you willing to do? Is it an expenditure of money, time, resources, calling in a favor with somebody, calling a meeting, willing to call a friend about something? What are you willing to do to make it the way you want it? Now that you're clear on how you want it to be, what are you willing to do to make it the way you want it? And that leads to number 7. What are you not willing to do to make it the way you want it? Maybe there's an extent you will not go to solve this problem. There's a level to which you will go. There are things you won't do. It might be, I won't compromise my integrity. I won't lie. I'm not going to spend more than this money on it, or this time, or this resource, or this energy. This is important to quantify as well because it helps create for us more certainty and it gives us more clarity. I won't do this. I won't cheat. I won't be unethical. I won't raise my voice. I won't ruin a relationship over this. It might be with a person at your job or who works for you, and they're creating a problem for you. I've had situations like this. A few weeks ago, one of my colleagues was not holding up their end of the bargain on their work, and I wanted to solve that problem. And I thought about how I could grow from it, what was good about it, what I could learn from it. I got resourceful about it. I decided what I was willing to do, but I also decided what I wasn't willing to do. And what I wasn't willing to do to solve this problem was to ruin that relationship with this person, was to hurt their self-confidence, was to give them more pain and anxiety and worry in their own life because I knew part of that was the reason they were struggling that created the problem in the first place. Their own pain, their own anxiety, their own worry, their own fears helped create this problem I was solving. And I was unwilling to contribute more to that to solve it. And then lastly, how can I enjoy the process? Wouldn't it be nice to enjoy the process of overcoming challenges and problems rather than it always being a grind, always being something we hate, always being painful? And again, this isn't fluff. Sometimes challenges and problems are just painful things we're going to get through. But these questions can empower you to make it less this way. And so ask yourself that question, what can I do to enjoy this? Because the more you can find enjoyment in the process of something that's going to always be in your life. Just think about this. We have this sort of fantasy that if I can get rich enough, or I can get in the perfect relationship, or I have the best business, or maybe if I just don't do anything and I retire someday, I won't have problems and challenges in my life. Now, we consciously know that's not true, but it's sort of the fantasy we live with. And now that I point that out, you go, that is crazy. Of course I'm always going to have these things. So since you have an acceptance that problems and challenges are going to exist, isn't it probably important that you learn to enjoy the process of overcoming them and solving them? I think all the time, man, how can I enjoy this? I think, man, what are all the great things that are going to happen when this is solved? Whose lives are going to be better when this is solved? How much better is my body, my fitness, my faith, my family, my life, other people's lives when this problem is solved, depending on what the problem and challenge is. And that helps me enjoy the process. I also remind myself this problem is helping me grow. It's an existence because I'm making progress in my life. So all these things fit a meaning that help us make the best decisions possible. And then finally, I want to give you 4 things that I think are mandatory in solving problems. Number 1, all problems must be solved on paper. And I'll substitute paper for a keyboard. But I think they need to be written out problems. There's a process that happens and a clarity of thought when we move the problem just out of our mind where all the emotions are and onto a piece of paper where we get resourceful and we get specific. And so all problems in the 15% category need to be solved on paper. When you write them down, you begin to see them. Also, by putting the problem outside of your mind and on a piece of paper, you remove yourself from the emotion of the problem and you become outside the problem. And your perspective changes simply by writing it. It gives you a different level of awareness to solve the problem from. It removes you from it and the emotion oftentimes, and it gives you a worldview, a perspective of above it that's different than when you're in it in your head. This is a huge thing I do on almost every problem I have that's in the 15% category, is putting it on paper. Then I'm above it and not in it, and I have a much better probability of solving. That's a huge one. Number 2 is we talked earlier about being clear on what you want, but I also want to attach to that having a perspective as to why you want it. So not only being very clear about what you want, but why you want it. And then ask yourself inside that question, how do I know when it's solved? What's my perspective? What's my evidence I need to know the problem was solved? Number 2. So it's in writing. How do I know when it was solved? What evidence? What would need to happen? What do I exactly want? Why do I want it? And what's the evidence that it was solved? So that you will move past it. So that it's something that is now behind you, but more importantly, you are in front of it. Third is always remember decisions are made on probability. Once you've made that decision, right? What have we talked about? Flood yourself with certainty and take massive action. But all decisions are made on probability, meaning there's never a perfect plan. You may make a decision to solve a problem that doesn't work, but what we're trying to do is make a decision that gives us the highest probability of solving it. So make all your decisions based on probability, not perfection. If you're sitting here waiting for the perfect solution, or if it doesn't work, or you've had any experience in your life when you tried to solve something and it didn't happen, you're setting up an unfair standard for yourself. Problem solving is about probability, so make sure you're making a decision that gives you the highest probability of solving it. And then 4th, all decisions need what I'd call like value clarity. Often you're going to have several results you could choose from to solve a problem, or there'll be several results when you solve the problem. And then you got to be clear about their order of importance. Sometimes one problem has 3 or 4 problems connected to it, or the solution of it will cause 3 or 4 different things. So it's getting clarity on importance level of solving the problem in its order. And then finally, I want to remind you of one thing on solving anything in your life, on making any change, whether it's solving a problem or just taking your life to a different level. In my opinion, it's always 75% psychology and 25% actual mechanics. And so I want you to be thinking about what you're thinking. The pathway to the best solutions, the pathway to great change in our life is always 75% what I'd call psychology or thinking, and 25% of it is the actual physical execution of the problem. So when you're making the decisions, focus 75% on the psychology and the mindset, 25% on the execution. And I hope that helps you today with some very tactical steps. I don't know that I've ever laid out more tactics and steps in one thing because it's such an important topic. And I gotta be honest with you, there's a great song Biggie Smalls had for years, more money, more problems, right? And the truth of the matter is, that's true. And so if you're thinking that the wealthier you get or the more successful you get, the fewer problems you're gonna have, that's not the case. Right now in your life, if you're at a higher level than you were 5 years ago, there are more frequent problems and sometimes even bigger problems as you progress in life. That's why it's so true that problems and challenges are an indication of progress. Show me the size of your problem and I will show you the size of your success and frankly, the size and scope of your life. I'd be terrified. I'd be miserable. I'd be concerned if my life started to not have problems on a regular basis and challenges. I do love them. I do look at what's great about them. I do look at how I can enjoy them because they're a constant and a staple in all of our lives. And so it's not going to go away as you climb the ladder. That's why having this formula and this recipe is so important, and important that I give it to you now. God bless you, and max out.